some of those organizations may have said first female prime minister for Italy, but they chose the other way to describe this.
You know, Brett, if you had 2 hours and could read to the bottom of the New York Times story about her election, you would see that she was historic. But you would have to get through more hard right and far right references. And I guess what I'm wondering is, if you're winning elections, if you are what the people want, at what point does that become the center? I mean, who gets to say what is far right?
Okay, so there are two important points in there. One, how dare you all in the media not fawn over Giorgia Meloni, founder of the far-right Brothers of Italy party, who is, as Trey Gowdy points out there, going to be the first female prime minister in Italy. That is one of the most important distinctions of hers. He's mad that people are focusing on the other one. So just to be clear, Fox in the future would love for you to focus on the identity of a person and not talk at all about their ideology, their positions, or anything like that. So let's be very clear about that. However, he's also wrong there. Some have greeted the fact that she's a woman with a degree of celebration. Hillary Clinton, for instance, said, "The election of the first woman prime minister in a country always represents a break with the past, and that is certainly a good thing." Which is a questionable thing to say about a politician rising to control a country like Italy when there's a lot of concerns about what she'll do in office. But in particular, to pitch it as a break with the past when it is very much the opposite of that thing makes her commentary even more ridiculous. So let's talk a little bit about this though, Rayyvana. She is the first woman prime minister. You notably are a woman. Or have you? I don't see any balloons in the background. Maybe they've already deflated or something. But are you celebrating for this identity-based win for Meloni?
I'm not exactly celebrating, maybe despairing a little bit. I will first, I want to acknowledge and give a shout out to Fox News for having such a diverse panel of constipated looking white men to discuss feminism. Good on them for that. But it just immediately reminds me of that clip from the Eric Andre show where he's asking his guest, "So do you think that Margaret Thatcher had girl power?" It's like her being a woman is not nearly as important as her being a literal fascist in ideology, which historically not been great for women. It is just sort of the centering of identity politics. And of course, it's not just the right wing who wants everyone to forget that she's a fascist pushing far right ideology. It's also liberals like Hillary Clinton who think that identity politics is the most important thing and not actually what these politicians stand for. It's really depressing. Of course, I'd like to see women in positions of power, but I'd like to see women in positions of power who hold actual good politics and who aren't literally fascist. I mean, she's a Mussolini defender, Brazier. She's just she's a fascist. I don't want a female fascist. I don't want a male fascist in any position of power in any country.
Yeah, that seems reasonable to me. Yeah, and really fast on his second point where he's like, well, who are they to say that she's far right? If that's what the people want, then that's what they want. Well, let's be clear, dude, pump the brakes. Our party got 26% of the vote. So let's just not freak out over like unanimous consent for the far right. And even if people vote for it, that's still what it is. I mean, you can place it on a spectrum, in comparison to other parties, either inside of Italy or around the globe. That's a thing that we can do. But I do want to focus on this identity thing because they think that they've got a great point here. So first of all, is more diversity of a variety of types, including gender identity, important in a lot of ways? Yes. Is that the only consideration? No, and no one on the left has literally ever made that claim, ever. They characterize us as saying that because they think that that's a straw man they think they can attack, but it's not. And by the way, you can be excited that she's a woman, even regardless of her politics. You might well be a conservative woman who likes it. You might be a woman who's down with fascism and likes it. But we can also identify that there's a little bit of the fun of getting more diversity that's taken away when the person entering the position seems dead set on stripping the rights away from the group that she purports to represent. We can point that out too. Not to say that people won't be inspired by it. Maybe there are little girls who are looking up to Meloni who hope to one day be female accessories to fascism decades in the future. I can't say that that's not true, but we can also critique her on the policy, which is what we're gonna turn to. But Rayyvana, any thoughts?
Yeah, it just quickly, it's sort of reminiscent of when Áñez came into power in Bolivia after the coup that ousted Evo Morales. I think New York Times called her something about girl boss. Girl boss politicians featured her, and she was also a fascist who legalized and oversaw murdering of protesters, predominantly indigenous protesters, by the state. So again, it's just this, let's forget about policy, let's center identity. And it's really harmful. Yeah. It's genuinely harmful.
Yeah, exactly. And look, they don't, of course they don't mean it. Trey Gowdy doesn't care. I mean, look, if they had their druthers, they would have women leaders who support the patriarchy, support white supremacy. And as long as it keeps, corporations and the 1% in a position of economic dominance, they'd be perfectly fine with it, but they don't like it. Let's be clear about that. Let's be clear about one other thing too. So I'm gonna say the thing that as a person who comments on politics, you're not supposed to say. I'm not an expert on Meloni or her party or the Italian far right, despite the fact that I am Italian and appreciate a good spicy meatball. I don't know a lot about Italian politics, but let's also be clear that everyone on that panel and everyone in the videos that we're about to show you knows exactly as little as everyone else about these politicians. They don't know what she's going to do. They just have the vague sense that she's probably a fascist, and that's what they like. It is, at the end of the day, an identity thing, just not a gender identity thing. They don't know about the specifics, but they know that she's largely in line with them ideologically. So what I do is I turn to people who actually do the research. So I'm gonna turn to some great commentary on this by Natasha Lennard of The Intercept, who had some great commentary on the historic role of women in fascism, especially white women, saying the idea that a woman leader opens doors for other women, as Clinton suggested, is of course laughable. That's especially true when that leader is a fascist keen to stop abortions and do away with employment quotas that favor women, quite literally shutting women in the nuclear home while locking out immigrant women from Italy's body politic altogether. And she contrasts Meloni with some of those in American politics in the Republican Party, saying Meloni, like her less polished far-right counterparts like Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Greene, weaponizes her role as woman and mother to police the boundaries of womanhood and reproduction. She has framed her poisonous anti-immigrant positions as a defense of Italian white women's safety, conjuring well-worn tropes of migrants importing sexual violence. And look, that's the thing. Like, can women hold these positions? Sure. Why are they doing it? Well, look, we often critique how like millimeter deep the facade of right-wing populism is. It purports to be against the establishment. It is anything but. She is going to give unto business what it wants and give unto the wealthy what they want. The populism part of it has nothing in common with populism when it's applied to left-wing politics. All it means is it's more virulently anti-immigrant than regular conservatism, which is hardly welcoming when it comes to migrants. It's even more aggressively anti-LGBTQ in comparison to regular conservatives who've never accepted the LGBTQ community. That's all it is. It's conservatism, but crueler. That's basically what it is. We'll get to more of her positions, but Rayyvana, I want to give you a chance to weigh in.
Yeah, so sort of going back to this idea of women in politics breaking down barriers and shattering the glass ceiling for women to look up to for women who want to pursue positions in politics later. Like if they have good politics, sure, that is true. But so when it comes to Margaret Thatcher, when she died, there was a BBC interview where they talked to these Scottish women who were celebrating her death, and it's a hilarious interview. If you just Google Margaret Thatcher, old Scottish woman, it'll come up. It's fantastic. But one of the interviewers asked one of the women if didn't Margaret Thatcher show that a woman could become prime minister? Isn't that important? And the woman says, why would you want a woman like that to be prime minister? Someone who's a warmonger in that position? And she was exactly right. And that's like reminiscent to me of what's going on right now. It's not shattering a glass ceiling. These people are not people you should look up to. This is not someone that little girls should think, oh, maybe one day I can be in that position because she was. You want someone who's going to have good politics and actually represent the rights of women and do it well in these positions as someone people can look up to, not people who are going to actively harm the rights of women.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.